This guy is relentless. He took down the bird's nest and even grabbed the wooden stakes, all for firewood. The way he's blowing on the fire, I'm worried he'll burn his beard off. Let's check on the contestants' shelters. Lyshi thinks a good shelter should block wind, water, and heat and have a big bed for rest, so he spends more time moving inland. It's better than rushing to set up a makeshift shelter. This spot is drier than he thought. With some cleaning, he can build a good shelter. But it's not flat enough, and he's worried rainwater might pour in. Lyshi was thinking of just making do. After all, it's almost dark, and he still has to move his stuff. While he was worrying, he noticed a fallen tree. Isn't this a ready-made shelter frame? He just needs to clear the weeds and cover it with a waterproof sheet. Constructing this shelter is almost effortless. Stein has already spent a lot of time searching for a spot. He's feeling colder and colder. If this continues, his body might not hold up. He needs to hurry. First, he must set up a shelter and start a fire to dry his clothes. He's been searching but hasn't found a suitable spot. Stein is nearly dizzy from all the walking and can hardly recall where he left his things. If he takes a wrong turn, he might have to go back the next day. He doesn't know what to do. This is nothing like he imagined before coming here. Now, he can only keep walking and see. At least he can still laugh, so his mindset is pretty good. When May reached the shore, she discovered a floating ball. She isn't sure if the show placed it in the sea. It looks pretty decent. She doesn't know what it can be used for, but it would be a shame to throw it away. Every item you find in the wild can potentially be useful later, and May feels incredibly lucky. She loves the feeling of surviving in the wild. It makes her feel relaxed. Next, she needs to hurry. She needs to set up her shelter. She spends most of her time on the farm, living a very comfortable life. Her family is behind her all the way. They doubt May will win, but they hope she lasts as long as she can. And May was very frail as a child. Forget about surviving in the wild, even playing outside was tough. So now, she pays special attention to her health. If she feels sick during the challenge, she might quit early. Unlike others, she doesn't worry much about loneliness. And May believes that relaxing in the wild is far better than being busy at home. She's also at ease leaving the kids with her husband. As long as she isn't the first to drop out, and May feels she's done well. After some wandering, she finds a good spot to spend the night. There are natural supports here, she just needs to clear away the extra bits. Later, she'll need to start a fire to dry off. She really wants to avoid staying wet. The weather shifts fast and soon it starts pouring. Meanwhile, next door, it's still sunny and clear. She feels like moving over there. Alan isn't having a good time either. The rain is getting heavier. This isn't at all what he pictured before arriving. Everywhere he steps is soaked. There's no dry ground in sight. If he doesn't stay steady, he'll surely slip. At least there's a lot of wood here. He also wonders if there's any food around. Alan intends to explore and strategize for the coming days. He believes he can endure until the end. After all, the other contestants don't seem very strong, and he's already found a water source not far from his shelter. Unlike the others who rely on collecting rainwater, he might even find some food in the creek if he's lucky. Now, he just needs a dry high ground. He thinks he'll be quite comfortable here. Christine's shelter is already set up. Inside, she stays dry despite the rain. With few fish around, she lights a fire and upgrades her shelter. It looks simple, but it works, and it only took her less than an hour. The cost effectiveness is really high. If she has time, she'll tidy up inside too, so she can rest more comfortably. She has to admit, the show picked a great location. She's never dealt with such quick weather shifts before, scorching one moment, pouring rain the next. Most people would struggle to adapt here. She's unsure how long she can last, but she truly loves the scenery. She wishes her family could be here to enjoy it. Fishing is so relaxing. The clouds seem to be moving this way. It seems heavy rain is on the way again. The camera then shows Lyshi, who has just found a spot for his shelter. He immediately moves his luggage there, which exhausts him. He has to hurry and finish the shelter. Many believe military experience boosts your wilderness survival odds, and that's somewhat true. But surviving in the wild depends on many things. For instance, luck plays a big role. Even with great survival skills, if you can't find food, you'll just have to wait to be carried home. However, years of military experience make him believe he's mentally stronger than the others. Lyshi is sure he can outlast them. He signed up for this challenge to push his limits, hoping to surpass them. He once traveled alone on a motorcycle. Loneliness doesn't cloud his judgment, it often boosts his resolve. While he's unsure about winning, but he's sure he'll place in the top 3. To pass the time, he weaves ropes and might craft other items. Collecting these could be fun for the kids. He encourages everyone to try such challenges. They offer a unique and thrilling experience. Lyshi thinks the first day went well. It's still dry enough, and he isn't worried about sudden strong winds. As long as the rain isn't too heavy, he's confident he can stay dry. He quickly dries his soaked clothes. Seeing the rain on the waterproof cloth, Lyshi considers tilting it to one side to collect rainwater more easily. He figures the rainy season will be long, so it's smarter to drink this water than look for a source. He thinks he can gather a can overnight. Though collecting takes a bit of time, it doesn't require much effort. And May finally got her shelter done. It's relatively dry inside. Now there's a small problem since the start of the competition. She hasn't had much water. Collecting rainwater is too slow. She needs to find a place to fetch water. It's still windy and rainy, so she has to venture out. Water is usually found in the mountains. The environment here is excellent. She believes the water is drinkable but is curious about its source. And May decides to look for a water source on the beach, thinking it should flow down from the mountains. A quick taste seems fine. This water is safe to drink directly. She fills a whole pot and drinks it all, feeling much better. Finding a nearer water source would save her a lot of effort. Meanwhile, Li Wei is still searching for a spot to build his shelter. For now, this soft area seems good. You can see traces of animal activity here. Maybe I can try hunting later. There are lots of dry branches here, ideal for a fire. Even if it rains, they'll stay dry inside. A tiny spark will set it alight. Oddly, it's just day 1 and I'm already feeling lonely. I miss my family and wonder what they're up to. This isn't helpful, as many participants quit because of such thoughts. I need to concentrate on building the shelter fast. There are plenty of good spots around, but Li Wei is still not happy after searching for a while. It's starting to drizzle again, and with limited time, he has to settle for a decent spot to build. This area is more open, making it easier to set up a waterproof tarp. It's really quite simple. If the weather gets worse, it feels like it could blow everything away. When you're alone in the wild with nothing to do, you start to overthink constantly. I hope some rest helps me regroup. Stein has been wandering here, trying to find a water source close to his shelter, but he hasn't found a satisfactory spot yet. Does he have to build his shelter here? The weather's going to worsen and the shelter could be blown away. It started raining again. He needs to quickly build the shelter to avoid getting his clothes wet. Lai Shi is gathering branches to place on the waterproof tarp. He'll place them on the waterproof tarp to keep them from blowing away and to spread out the rain's pressure. Extra branches can be stacked by the fire to keep it burning through the night. This really feels like true wilderness survival now. It's just the first day and I'm already exhausted. I can't fathom how past participants built log cabins and kept going. If the show didn't make us talk to the camera so much, like she wouldn't want to do it. He thinks doing this daily will eventually drive him crazy. Sometimes he can't tell if he's sleeping or awake. It's only the first day and his mental state is already a bit off. Living alone in the wilderness isn't for everyone. There's a lot to do, but your body constantly demands rest. You have to push yourself to keep going. There are still many tasks ahead. Gather more resources before the rain intensifies. Rest well after it gets dark and see if this loneliness can be overcome, making the inner self stronger. I hope all goes well. Alan continues to explore. The light rain is manageable for now. Walking on dry grass feels great. These are excellent fire-starting materials and can be collected. He spreads the grass in his shelter, thinking the show's location is fantastic. If only there were a stable food source. He feels certain he'll win. Alan's overconfidence shows in his constant smile. He just remarked on how nice and dry it is here. But the weather is relentless and the rain intensifies. Before the challenge, he was already anxious about home. Leaving his wife to handle everything alone is stressful, but the kids are excited about the prize money and want to brag at school. Alan spent a lot of time getting ready for this challenge. He chose his clothing meticulously to stay warm in the wild. Since it's his first time in Norway, he had to rely on online information. Upon arrival, he found the weather to be much worse than what he read online. Alan had thought he could manage, maybe just deal with some hunger. Now he faces another challenge. The harsh weather is very uncomfortable, and the area is already flooded like the rest. Finding a dry spot seems unlikely. Plus, there are many sharp rocks here. If he accidentally bumps into one, he might get injured. Another annoying thing is the rainwater constantly seeping into his clothes. Alan's body feels awful. He wants to strip down and light a fire to dry off. It's not raining yet where Magnus is, but the clouds are moving in. It looks like it will rain soon. He dreads moving. Initially, he planned to set up a shelter right away, then gather firewood and berries. When the weather improves, he would check the fishing nets. That's the plan, but being here makes everything feel very difficult. He doesn't even want to go out to find food. Before coming, he had a big meal at his parents' place and asked for any good advice. No one had much confidence in him. After all, wilderness survival isn't a game, especially when you're alone. They doubted he'd last a week, which really hurt him. Determined to prove them wrong, Magnus aims to stay as long as he can. He wants to prove himself to his family. His biggest worry is not finding food during the challenge. His small frame can't endure for long. Hunger makes him quite irritable, so he ate a lot before coming. It helped him gain some weight for now. At least he's determined not to be the first to leave. The rain is really getting to him, making him feel miserable in the shelter. He's completely silent, realizing this challenge is tougher than he thought. He's soaked to the bone. He's not even gathering firewood. At this rate, he'll be going home soon. Meanwhile, Lyshi next door is actively surviving. Despite the rain, he's out looking for resources, gathering branches for shelter and searching for food. He stumbled upon a bird's nest, but it was empty, so he took it home for tinder. After all, it's great tinder. With some dry wood, it can burn for a long time. He's feeling better about his situation now. But food is quite scarce, with few edible plants around. Magnus waited for the rain to stop. Now he finally has the means to set up a fishing net. Some might wonder why nets are allowed on the first day. It's clear they haven't starved much yet, and the showrunners worry they might faint from hunger, allowing everyone to use nets to catch fish. Then it becomes a test of willpower. He thinks he needs to eat at least 2 fish a day to barely keep going here. When Lyshi returned to the shelter, he felt the ground was a bit damp. He needs to process the wood a bit. Now he can try to light the fire. He has to admit, using his own tools is great. He's much more skilled with them. He doesn't know if it's the wood or his technique, but the fire just won't start. Even if there's a bit of flame, it won't burn strongly. This really worries him. Lyshi doesn't know how much time he spent. But he finally got the fire going. Feeling the warmth from the flames, his whole body relaxed a lot. Stein is still struggling with his shelter. He had many plans and ideas, but reality didn't allow for them. He wasted too much time looking for a spot, making his start quite poor. Luckily, the current location is decent. If he completes the shelter before the rain starts, the first day should be fine. He just didn't have much time to find water. Alan is spending his first night here, feeling quite anxious. He doesn't know if there's enough firewood. He's concerned a sudden storm could destroy his shelter overnight. He aims to dry his wet clothes and is hoping for clear weather tomorrow. Lyshi has collected plenty of branches today, so he can focus on finding food without worrying about firewood for a few days. Fishing seems to be the most reliable food source right now. Hopefully, the weather will be better tomorrow. Lyshi has fire and water now. His shelter is well constructed. He used extra fabric and branches to make the ground more comfortable, though it's still a bit hard, but it's certainly an improvement over lying on the bare ground. Christina lit a fire and is pleased with her shelter. She can pick some fruits to eat anytime, making her days quite comfortable. She even picked leaves to make tea. Having a hot cup of tea in this environment really lifts the spirits. I wonder if the tea is really that good. Christina, exhausted from a busy day, just wants to rest. Liwei, feeling down, talks to himself on camera. He appears rather down and is hoping for better luck tomorrow. I wonder who impressed everyone the most on the first day. It's definitely not Stein. He's the only one still without a finished shelter or a fire. He's barely getting by on rainwater. I doubt he'll last much longer. How many days do you think he has left?